All right, welcome everyone. This is a Viper Professional Training and Support webinar. Today's date is April 23rd, 2019. My wife's birthday, as a matter of fact. And this is a Tuesday night webinar. And the title of tonight's webinar is Recognize Trend Changes Early. And as everyone knows that's been to our webinars or our live trading room, everything that we say and do at Viper Trading Systems is for educational purposes only. Futures trading, Forex trading, any kind of financial instruments trading involves risk. Therefore, there's always risk of loss. You should only trade discretionary capital, and that is money that you can afford to lose. Nothing said in this webinar. Other webinars we have, our live trading room or anything else with Viper Trading Systems should never be construed as trading or investment advice. And as always, everyone does trade at their own sole discretion. Has to say a bunch of happy birthdays to Linda. I'll tell her that when we get out of the webinar. All right. By the way, just a quick heads up. I'll be running the room tomorrow, Thursday, and Friday. Charles is going to be out. Okay, and he will not be having his webinar on Thursday. Okay, now I'll take up his webinar on Saturday. We'll just swap. Okay, so you'll get an email to tell you that, plus I'll get it canceled on his Thursday webinar. Okay, so he will be out until Monday. Did he need a second job due to rising gas prices? Brian says, no, actually, he's had a little bit of a problem with his foot, and he went to the doctor, and the doctor said, you need that worked on. So they've got him actually at the hospital and taking care of that. So he will be out of pocket, well, through at least Saturday. You know, we won't know anything until then. Yeah, sounds like fun. I agree. I don't like anything to do with doctors or pain. All right. So let's go ahead and get started with the webinar anyway. And I'll let everybody know because, you know, not everybody's in this webinar tonight, but a lot of them watch it later on. And, but tomorrow morning you'll be stuck with me. All right. So let's go ahead and go into the chart. Now, how many of you have trouble seeing trend changes? Just a show of hands. I won't mention anybody's name. Anybody have trouble seeing trend changes? Not anymore. Good, good. Sometimes, okay. Because I can tell you this, what you really want to get in the habit of doing is you've got to understand, just like I've taught many, many times before, that there are more than, you know, just the one trend on your chart. Everybody knows that by now, I'm sure, that's been to our webinars and everything. But it's extremely important that you do know this because just to give you a quick example, let me go ahead and pop this up here real quick. You know, on your chart, you basically have the three trends that are the most important to me. These are the ones that I watch like clockwork. Okay, because, you know, I'm watching Lightning 1 and just real fast and furious, but it's still trends. Okay, it's still trends. Your Lightning 2 still trends. So when I'm talking about trend change entries, you can actually be changing trends on this or this or this at different times. Okay, for instance, like if you get, let's say a double top, to give an example, on something, and you happen to box it in and you say, well, you know what, if it breaks this and starts stair-stepping back down, I might just want to short this. That's a totally logical way to trade, and a lot of people do that. Okay, but keep in mind that if you go against the trend, you really want to have, you know, fairly tight stops, because, you know, going against a trend, I can tell you this, that a lot of times they will just kind of pop it, and if they do pop it, then you'll notice that you're going to be down somewhat before you get back in the direction you should have been. Okay, but we're going to talk about quite a bit of this tonight. Let me go ahead and get rid of this chart right here because we'll do it on the actual chart. But anyway, when I see a chart like this, for instance, now don't pay attention to the power meter because this is actually in real time, so I'm not at the end of this chart. Notice here, I'm not at the end of the chart because I want to try to teach tonight a little bit better how to see trend changes, because it is extremely important to be able to see the trend change And everybody's got to be able to look at their charts and figure out where that trend change actually happens. But there's also differences in where the trend change happens depending on what, swings you're looking at. Okay. For instance, I think everybody can tell right now you're pretty much in an uptrend on gold, obviously, right? You're in an uptrend. But you would also expect it, if it's going to continue up, if you get a higher low, you need also a higher high, obviously. So you would want to take this out. Okay, so, if you don't take this out and you start consolidating, you can go against the trend, especially with trend lines, and even short against the trend. Okay, and I'm going to show a little bit of that tonight if we can get some examples of it and things like that. But now when I'm talking about a trend change as far as breaking like lightning 3, I would actually expect for a good trend change to actually take this out right here, okay, and more than likely either do a little consolidation patch or thrust down and retrace back to it. Let's go ahead and change that to white. Everybody see that? And keep in mind that this is extremely important, when you're trading, because you don't know right now with looking at this chart if this is going to double top, if it's going to blow through here, and then this will be your new established low. But you've always got to keep in mind, where's my trend change on lightning 3 if it happens to break. And this is the most popular one simply because when it changes trends, it's a real trend change. Okay, because if you, for instance, thrust down below here and kiss back up at resistance and roll over, you'll hear us say that all the time in the room. That's called a rollover trade. Okay, but keep in mind you've also got other lightning that you can look at. Let me draw lightning 2 just for an example real quick. I'll draw lightning 2. All right. Now you'll notice that lightning 2, you have a high, you have a low, you have a higher high, you have a higher low, but we don't know if this is going to be our established low. So this is our established low right now, right? Okay, that's our established low as far as what I'm looking at right now. Let's go forward just a little bit and see if it becomes our established low. No, now this is our established low. See it right there? Okay, now if you go against a trend at all, what I'm going to tell you is this. If, for instance, if you were to decide, hey, if it breaks this, and I'm going to try to take a short trade to give an example, and I'm saying if, because this could easily blow through that line. But if you're going to short something like this right here, you've got to put your stop above the swing. That, for instance, like right here, that swing is right here. If you were to short this, if it broke this, haven't yet. All right, looks like it did. All right. Now notice that this is not a trend change as of yet, but it did break support on our little boxing. Okay. Now, if you go and take a trade against the trend like this, you have to put that stop up here. Okay. And with one contract, that's not so bad. But if you do like 3, that's not so good, because if this was to come down and then go back up there without taking this out, then you could feel some major heat, right? Okay, so you got to be careful, going against the true trend, because when this actually starts really changing trends is when you start getting stair-stepping down on this right side of the chart. Okay, not so much on the left. Okay, now if you would have shorted this and put your stop here, did this trade work out? Very possibly. See there? It actually held this swing. So actually you ended up actually getting a trade like that, okay, on this particular chart. Now, if you're going to trade the real trend change that goes with lightning 3, then you're pretty much going to have to take this trade that breaks. See how it just kissed it and bounced, kissed it and bounced, and now it broke it. Okay, if you're going to take that particular trade on a break, you pretty much have to do what's called a breakout trade. And again, you would have to put your stop above the swing, or you just don't let it go against you. Okay, And you could do that with like lightning 1 to give an example. Just, don't let the lightning go against you. Because, for instance, when this breaks like this, see how that's just kissing around and then it finally breaks? Okay, that's what they always do. So if you put so tight of a stop, they're going to try to wick you out of trades. Notice how this had a high here, a low, lower high, lower low, barely. And then what do? They check that and they wick it and then they roll it over. That's why you've really got to put your stop just a little bit above, maybe with the close of a bar, and sometimes you'll still get nicked. Okay? But when this truly changed trends as far as lightning 3 is concerned, is when it took out this area right here. Okay? When you took out lightning 3. And that new indicator that we're talking about will actually warn you of this trade right here. Okay? For instance, if you would have boxed this in, like, I don't know, like right across here, let's say that you saw it go down below and it kissed, and you decided, hey, if it breaks this box, I'm going to go ahead and take it, put my stop here. And, did it come back and check it again? Yeah, they usually do. And then it did go ahead and break down, I believe, yeah. And then it tested it again. Okay? So that's what you're going to run into. See how I drew that line? In real time, basically, because we knew that was where our high was at the time. Okay, so let's look at the actual chart at where we're at right now, like right here. This is just the start of a new day. And let's see if we can figure out where the next trade is by what I just taught. Bear with me 1 second. We'll get the chart out. I need a gold chart. Here it is. Bear with it just a moment. And here's what you would get if you got up, for instance, at midnight. This is midnight on this particular chart right here. Everybody see that? Okay. Now, what would you do in a case like this to take this trade? If you decided to take it, could you use a trend line like Brian talked about? I think so. Because I see, well, if you drew your trend line from where it's already been, obviously, this would have been your trend line, and you would have actually entered it right in here, okay? But we weren't up at that time, so that's not when we got the trade. You've always got to look at the chart when you actually get to the chart, because it's great to look at hindsight, but you can't get that trade anymore right there. Everybody see that? But you can get this trade like that, right? And so that's what I'd probably recommend doing on that particular trade. Now, we don't know what it's going to do at this, but it looks like it is starting to trend down, obviously. So you got red mid-band and everything. That would have been a real good box trade, but that was the day before. Okay? Now, if you're going to use Object Trader from one day to the next, see how that's got a session break right there? You can't do that unless you turn off the feature in Object Trader about the session break. See where this says auto disable at session break is false? That should go ahead and trigger that trade, but I've still had trouble with a trend line because with NinjaTrader software, not our software so much, but going from one day to the next, they don't recognize the math on this as much. So what I would do instead in a case like that is probably box this in. Okay, because if I was up at midnight and I wanted to take a chance that this trade, and I might even take a chance on this trade, except that we're in a downtrend, so this would be a little riskier, right? A little riskier trade. But you can use the feature on Object Trader like that too. So let's go ahead and start Object Trader and see if we can get a little trade based on what we already looked at. We know that we've got a short mid-band. We should break down. If we don't, we're going to have a good tight stop on it. All right, so we'll set a region, and we'll just simply hit insert to get our little region. Okay, now what I would probably do in a case like this, I look to the left to trade the right. I see a swing here and here. So if I was going to take this long, I would probably want to take out that swing. Everybody see why? Because that is my lightning 3 swing, and if it takes it out, it probably would head up. But I would put a tight stop on it. Then, if I was going to take this trade, since I already see this swing here, I would more than likely just go ahead and box it in something like this. Okay, now that's a bigger box than I like, but if this goes my direction, then I'm going to be watching it to make sure it doesn't go against me. Okay, and then you can set it for, you know, however many contracts you want or whatever. Okay, and of course you need to also absolutely make sure that you turn on your short enabled and your long enabled if you want to take it either direction. Okay, and then you're ready for the trade. Now, like I said, you missed this one because it was the day before. At midnight, which is right here on this session break, this is the only trade I see, and that's if it takes out support, right? If it takes out support, I'll take a chance on it. So let's see if we can get anything on it. If it bips us, it bips us, but if it does, we'll get it back. We always do. Let's see, we got that set on close. I usually like touch plus myself. And let's just see if we can get something. Now, let me ask you a quick question. If you were trading this right now and you were looking, all right, we did get our trade. Let's get one out of the way, look to the left to trade the right. I'd probably put one right down in here, see the support level, and one right here, but I like to ride a runner. So since we've only got 2 contracts, we'll go ahead and just let the runner run. Okay, and now that we're in this trade, we have a swing right across here, so we could easily put our stop just above that. So we're good to go, right, on the trade. All right, now, if this was to decide that this was like a little, you know, thrust above and decided to go ahead and head up, then, you know, if we go back inside that box very much at all, we would want to protect it. Okay, but you do have to give it somewhat of wiggle room, at least to get lightning started. Okay, because lightning, see how you're doing this little thrust down, little retrace, trying to thrust again. This is your lightning swing right here, what we call the primary swing, if that closes down. And you could easily put your stop right above there with exit on close. Everybody see that? Now, what I like to do personally when I'm trading, like my kiddos account, for instance, the one that we share with them, I usually like to just simply go for dollar amounts a lot of times. And, you know, a lot of our traders do just this. You know, for instance, if you just wanted, you know, that's $300, could you just click close? And the answer is yes. But if you've only got one left, couldn't you just ride this trade and see where it might head? And you can do that with the lightning feature that's built into Object Trader because it does flat work. It's a really good feature. Now, see, if this goes down below here or double bottoms, you could always bring your stop. You know, if they double bottom, you can always protect your trade. See how they're double bottoming right there? You know, I might want to protect my trade. If it goes on down, we're still okay. See? See if it's going down or if it's going to double bottom. Yeah, see, that's bottoming out. You can tell it is. There you go, you're out. All right, now let's look and see if we can get another trade the same way we just took that one. Now, what direction would you be looking for this particular trade? Anybody? Would you take a long against the trend, or would you be looking for a rollover short? A rollover short, right? Now, let's diagnose this chart because this webinar is about recognizing trend changes, okay? Because I'm looking at my charts all the time to see where my potential trend change could be, okay? Now, right now, the way I'm looking at this chart, I've got a low here, got a high here, got like an ABC Gartley type move. So to me, this chart would have to take this out to ever change trend direction, as of right now anyway. Okay, now you could even look at this primary swing and say, well, you know what, if it takes this out, I might even look for a long, but then you got resistance right there. So if this was to change trends, I would want it to do this right here. It would have to thrust up above it at least a little bit, you know, like a little consolidation spot where you could box it, and then come back and kiss before I would want to take that trade. And then obviously to take off if it does that. Okay, that's if it changes trends. And you've always got to look at your charts to see if you're going to get a trend change. And you do that mostly with Lightning 3. Okay? Let's go ahead and see if we can get another trade. Now what I see right now is I see support right here. So I would probably bring my region right here for right now, just in case. And then I would get ready to very possibly box it in if it keeps going up, because I like to box. You know, we don't know where this is going just yet, but we know right now if it was to start stair-stepping back down, it would break my little swing here at where support is. That might be a minimum criteria trade. Okay? Now, once you have enough data on the chart like this, you can use the trend line. And the trend line is a pretty good little tool. Absolutely, you can use a trend line there. And that's what I was saying there. Matter of fact, let's just do that. Brian likes trend lines. I like trend lines. Lots of our people like trend lines. Just pick your ray. Draw your trade. And if this does anything like where I can do like a Y trend line, I even draw a Y trend line, because I see resistance right here to the left, and I see resistance right here to the left. That's my two areas of resistance. See them on the left? And you can draw lightning if you have to. You'll see them if you draw it. See there? Okay, so you got your little swing right here, and you got your swing right here. So that's actually your level right there, and this is your level right here. If it hits its head, you should be looking for a rollover. Okay, and of course we've got this mid band that's really looking at all this price action too. Now you'll notice, I've got that on bar close, wedge. All right, we'll do it as a wedge. Let's see if we can get something. Wedges are good trades. I like them. Well, not much moving at 2 o'clock in the morning, but let's see if we can get a wedge trade. See how I'm tightening my trend line along that little swing right there? Just about kissed resistance perfectly, didn't it? See if it goes up a little bit more. It might. Now, if it kisses that line without going through it and then comes back, you know, I'd probably fire that trade anyway, but a wedge like that is a really good way to trade this. Okay? Now, if you ever used like power meter, oh, that's a good trade. I would probably... That's good. It's right along the lows. That's fine. Now, usually what I'll do when I see that happen is I go ahead and click the sell button, but we got it anyway. All right. Now, where would you put your stop on this trade? Anybody? Well, you're not into enough profit yet, and you're not stair-stepping down yet, but if you're looking to the left to trade the right, it kissed this resistance here. It hasn't kissed this one here. So I would probably put my stop just above that one, just in case they decide to kiss it also, and put it on exit on close. Okay? Everybody see that? And the reason you do that, looking to the left to trade the right, is still looking exactly at those little micro trends. See how that's coming down just a little bit? You know, not giving us too much of a trade just yet. There's a little bit better. And probably since this is playing like it is, I'd more than likely just want to hit this swing right here with one of my profit targets. That's support right there. See it? It kind of double bottom when it went up there. So if it kisses this, this is more than likely a good area to protect some profit. You know, when Charles is in the room, we talk about line 2 from mid-band. That's a good place to take some profit, especially if there's a swing there. Let's see, why did you sell? Can you explain, please, and what is wedge in a couple of words? Absolutely, Arthur. What wedge is, we designed wedge on Object Trader to actually be able to take a trade based on a trend line type break with just simply using the ray in NinjaTrader. It's called a wedge trade, okay? And when you draw a line on the chart with the ray, the moment it touched that by 2 ticks is what I had it set at, remember? 2 ticks. So when it touched that by 2 ticks, it fired the trade. And it fires it with a market order at your broker. Okay? Now, if I want to protect my coin, you know, majorly, like let's say that I'm getting up pretty nicely for the morning and I'm happy, I can go ahead and bring my stop to this lightning 1 if I want to. Like so. Okay? But keep in mind, a lot of times they'll go back up there and they'll check those swings. You'll notice that a lot. If you've traded a lot, you've seen them do it a lot. There you go. We got a decent little trade. I'd definitely be protecting that trade by now. All right. Art, on your question though, this wedge trade, the way we designed this by being able to use a Ninja ray on the toolbar, is so that a person, when they draw on that chart like that, you can get these trades just simply based on either touch or touch plus. You know, you can even just ask it to touch. Well, if it's a short, it's going to touch on this side of the line. And if it's a long, you're actually looking for it to touch on the other side of the line, right? Okay. We weren't looking for longs, though, because what was the background? What is the overall trend direction at that time? Now, granted, we were retracing. And if a person is gutsy enough, could you take this trade for the retrace? Yes. But if you take this trade for the retrace against the trend, always remember, and this is my personal feeling on this, and I know a lot of traders too, if you take that trade above that line right there long, then don't let it go back in the box. Okay? When you take against a trend, you can't really put it down here because you'll end up, you know, getting barely in, and then they'll roll it over, and then they'll take this out, and with like 2 contracts, you'll be down, you know, $250. Okay. You want to see how you can use that wedge? Let's see if we can get another one. That looks like it might. See if this bar closes down. You do have resistance right here. There's also resistance right there. So if it closes above that, you could protect your coin. And it looks like it's going to get us. See if it does. Still trying to roll. We'll see. Didn't get us yet. Tried. It may get us though. Still trying again. Now, if you're going to ride what we call a gusto trade, let me show you how you would do that instead. All right. Let's move our stop if we can get it. If we can get it in time. I don't think I can. It's right on that. Here we go. All right. If you want a gusto trade, you got to put your stop above the swing that's identified. Okay. Because see how this is high, low, lower, low, barely. So that swing is not identified yet. But when this broke, that swing and that swing is identified. Okay. So what I will usually do in a case like that, if I want to ride this for the gusto, is I will go ahead and put my stop here instead. You know, because it wouldn't be heading up, in other words, unless it took this out. Okay. And matter of fact, remember in oil today, I drew a trend line and got out of all but one. Well, if this comes back up here and kisses this line and gives you what I call a box-in type trade or a wedge type trade, I'd take it again and I'd add a contract. okay, because they do that quite a bit. Let's get rid of the lines and let's see if we can get another trade. I'm going to leave my stop just right above the swing, exit on close. Just simply because we are heading down. Okay, we're heading up on this side of the chart, but we're heading down on this side of the chart. See what I mean? So we're still stair-stepping down so far. That's your swing. And could you be ready for a wedge type trade as it's doing what it's doing right now? See how you did a little thrust retrace? If they break up above here, you could draw a trend line right there, like so, and be ready to take that trade if it happens to break that trend line. And I'll readjust that trend line if it gets a tighter trend line. Like I've taught for years, I like to draw a trend line under lows, but if this thing was to go up with several bars, I'd draw the trend line right under its lows. Could you do that? See what I mean? Just like that. Okay. And you got it on touch plus 2. Okay. We'll see if we can get anything added to it. We'll see. Now, predictor, by the way, is saying that it's going up a little bit higher. Predictor says right here, like so. Well, this is where predictor says it's going, so I'd probably raise my stop just a tick or two above where predictor says it's going. See if I can move it, and then move the line. There we go. All right, because predictor says it should hit here, so I'm going to give it just a little bit of wiggle room since I've only got one, just in case they barely take this out, because predictor says it should roll right here. Okay, it's looking at this price action to see if it should roll here. Now, we have to, though, as traders, we have to decide, what if this changes trends? You have a low, you have a high, you have a higher low. If they took this out right across here by very much, and the way I like to do it personally is I'll draw a little box. Now, I don't take a trade yet, but I draw a little box in my mind or even on the chart. And if it was to break up, do like a phantom, come back and kiss this area and box it, that's a trend change. Okay, and that's an early trend change. Okay, now you want to be careful just taking it if it barely breaks above here, because they'll wick you into those. Okay, but if let's see, we haven't gotten that yet, touch plus 2. It has to do 2 plus 1, remember? See if it gets it. Still looking at the trend line, still looking at touch plus 2. And by the way, if you see this happening in real time, just reposition your trend line along those lows. See how I'm going with the wick of that candle right there? You know, if this goes up a little bit more, if it breaks it, then it has to actually break this little, as it's trying to stair step. Okay, see, it's coming right close. Now I'd reposition that little puppy just a little bit more, like so. See how I'm right underneath that wick of that candle? That's a little trend line that's just going under the lows of those candles, because I'm right at resistance. I don't want to get the trade clear down here. I want to try to get it as close to here as possible. But what if it breaks up? That's why I'm using a trend line instead. There you go. You just added 2. See how that works? Okay. Trend lines are great, by the way. I think this is one of the best parts of the tools that we added to Object Trader right there. I love that particular feature, because trend lines can get you in a trade at a good, proper time. Now, we're already in 3, but, you know, for instance, if you wanted to add one, could anybody see a place you could actually add one if you wanted to? You could draw a trend line. Okay. Art, do you understand what I was talking about there? Because keep in mind that you can go against the trend. You know, for instance, the other day in the room, I called a trade on ES where we actually took a trade just like this. Just like so. Remember it? And remember what oil did today, even, where it came back in the box? and we got that long trade that just went like crazy, but they don't always do that. So what you do, if you do take against the trend, you get some profit, you take it away, just like I did on my oil trade today. All right, then you keep your box drawn on your chart, and if it pops back above it, you get that next trade. Yeah, you can take longs on that. But always remember that if you go against the true trend, what's really happening on your chart, you want to draw on your charts, and if they do happen to hit like mid-band and roll, get out of the trade long quickly. Okay? Because this is still a short type of a trade so far, albeit it's a little sloppy. Let's see what it actually did. I'm not up at 4 a.m., but I was up at 5 this morning on gold. Did anybody trade gold around 5 a.m. this morning? Some of you? Good. Boxing in and trend lines can absolutely be some of the best trades you'll take. Okay? And always watch your predictors too, because, you know, for instance, see how that kissed just right underneath that predictor? Let's get this out of the way for just a minute, and I'm going to see if anybody can pick another trade. But let's say that you're not in this trade just yet, and you're wanting to wait for it to break even support, to give an example. Okay? You want it to go ahead and break that and then get a retrace. Okay? Because that's a logical trade to look for also. You know, for instance, if it broke this area right here and came back and kissed it, could you short it? Yes. What if it broke this area right here and came back and kissed it? The answer is yes again. You see what I mean? You're trading, you know, based on thrusts and retraces, okay? But it can be with just simply the power meter 1, 2, or 3. Okay, this is 3, you notice here? If this breaks below here and comes back and kisses, or like even a predictor, would this be a good trade? This was still earlier than I got up, but let's just see what it did. Stair-stepping down, isn't it? All right, took it out. Now, if you got up at, let's say this is like 6 o'clock in the morning. This is 6 o'clock in the morning. Where would your next trade be on this chart? Where would you look for the trade to be? Well, I always draw on my charts, okay? Thrust, retrace, thrust, double top. That's a swing right across there. All right? This is a swing right across here, but notice that it didn't break down very much yet. Okay? I like a little more thrust than that, a pullback and a roll. Okay? So I'd be looking for a trade probably right in this little sweet spot right here. Let's see if we can get one. Let's just see if we can get one. And again, I like these predictors. They work out quite well. And predictors will draw in the proper spot if you draw on your charts. Let's see if we can get one. I'm going to speed this up. I remember how slow this was this morning. Now, I was up at this particular time this morning. I got up at 5. Now, of course, you wouldn't have your stop way up here. We could go ahead and have our stop like just above that swing right there, to give an example. See your low, your high, your lower low, lower high, lower low. That should be an identified swing, right? So I put my stop there. All right, let's say that you weren't even in a trade at all. There you go, there you go. See how that's kissing resistance right there? See how that kissed the predictor right there? If you weren't in anything at all, could you have taken that trade right there at that predictor? Let's say that you saw this and you decided, I want that bar. Now I'm going to put this pretty tight because we're in a new trade now. Everybody see that? It came right where I thought it would, just a little higher. But notice where predictor drew. Because predictor knew that with this price action, this is where resistance was. Okay? And again, you can use trend lines too. Let's see, just one sec. Let me read some questions here. What is the exact price of the predictor, the dotted line, of the entire elliptical? Well, Bhaskar, on your question, What I look at on predictors, first off, is I'm looking for them to come just in this little sweet spot, like a region. This is technically a little region right there. And see how it kissed it? See the bottom of the predictor and it kissed it? That's where price expected it not to take out that swing. That's why that drew that there. Let's see, Art says, but my main question was why sell the first time? How do you know that would not go higher? Talking about 226 area on your chart, the first sell. You're talking about this one. Oh, right here is what you're talking about, right? This one right here. Well, if let's say that you took this with even one contract. Let's say that you got up and you said, well, you know, it's midnight. If they break this support right here, I'm going to go ahead and short this little puppy. Okay? And let's say that they did it. Well, you'd have to pretty much put your stop right above here for right that very moment, right? But as soon as you got lightning, like so, you can bring your stop here instead. And of course, you see it went down pretty drastically after that. Okay? So, you know, when you first get in a trade, yeah, you can't just put your stop where if it goes against you immediately that you're going to get out. Now, you will do that if you go against the trend. If you go against the trend, like for instance, let's say that you box this little area in like we did ES the other morning. I think it was yesterday. All right. And it went out of the box like so. All right. So you're long on the trade. You try to get 10 ticks. You got 10 ticks, right? And it starts stair-stepping back down instead of going up. Now that's making a little there. And if it goes ABC and you get back in the box, you're definitely out of the trade, right? Could you go again when it took out the box? Yes. Okay. And that was probably another 10 ticks. I'd have to calculate it out. Depends on where you got in. Okay, let's see. April 3rd, around 226 off midband. 226 off midband. You're talking about this one right here, where we got in that trade? Okay. Well, the way we did that one was, for one thing, see to the left where your swing is? See how when they broke down, they'll usually kiss the bottom of the swing on a short, and sometimes they'll even get close to the top of the swing. But if they're going to head down, they don't take it out. Okay, looking on the left side of the chart. Now, this was a pretty precipitous drop. So when they do that, you can pretty much expect they're going to kiss resistance and roll over. And of course, if you got in that trade right then and there, let's say you got in on that bar close, you'd put your stop right there because you can see the swing. And it got easily 10 ticks. Now, like I said, keep in mind that there are people that actually trade both sides of this thing. You know, because if you remember yesterday on ES, even though it was slopping around, remember Charles was talking about if it went to midband, he was going to talk about shorting it if it rolled over. And then I diagnosed the chart and I said, well, we're actually getting a higher low on the main trend. And it's the open of the market. So, you know, if we box it here, if it pops out of it, we're not going to let it go against us. And remember what ES did? It went up. But you've always got to be ready either way. But again, this particular webinar is to talk about trend changes more than anything. And I want everybody to look at the chart, and you can tell when the trend's going to change on this chart by simply diagnosing the chart. Where would the trend change on this chart right now if it was to decide to do it? Okay, let me get rid of lightning 1 because that's pretty fast. I want you to be able to see the overall on the chart. Because we do this every day, and this isn't, you know, bunk or anything like that. This is the way we actually teach this and trade this. Let me get rid of the lines. All right, and we'll close this. We don't care about the trade. What I want to teach you is how to see the trend change. All right, notice that you have a low here, a high here, and a lower low. Now, when you get that, as a rule, they're going to keep heading down. Okay, when you could possibly trend change is when they barely take out these lows like they're doing right now. Okay, but not unless they take out the swing. Okay, because right this very moment, you don't know if this is going to be just this low here and this barely lower low here. Now, it may turn out to be that, but what would it take to change trends on this particular chart? Anybody? You would have to break above, probably do a phantom type trade, at least come back to support, and more than likely mid-band would be there by then anyway, and then you would head up. That would be a trend change, right? Okay. Now, could you take it if it just simply happens to break the level right here? And the answer is yes on that. But keep in mind that as a rule, when they break resistance, you know, they're going to come back and kiss it. But some people will go ahead and take a break of a trade and just not let it go against them with several contracts, and then they just watch the dollars. They don't care just as long as it doesn't come back against them. Okay, so if this was to shoot up 10 ticks, you know, and they're up $300, they may just hit the close button. But if it came back at all, they're going to be out of that trade. All right, so let's watch this chart. I'm going to speed it up a little bit and see if we can, any of us can tell when a true trend change actually happens on this chart. And I'll just speed it up to like 500 just so everybody will see it. And if you remember right, see how that's still heading down, still stair-stepping, isn't it? Now, what if you got up at 7:04 in the morning? Does anybody see a trade set up on this chart? Yes or no? Anybody? Well, it's setting up as we speak, so you better think about it. It's got resistance right there. Could this be the chance of getting it? That's a predictor. That's definitely a predictor. What does anybody think? You want to do this? Take a chance on it? See if we get anything. Right at resistance. Now, if it takes this resistance out, could this be a trend change yet? And the answer is no. Because that's what they do. They'll take that out by a wick or so, and then more than likely roll it over. Now, if they were to take this out, which is actually your true trend, then yes, they would. Okay, see how that's just kissing resistance right there? And there's your trade. And I'd probably tighten that just in case. See how that just wicked that swing? So I'm risking 140 bucks. And I'd put one target down at the bottom. See if I could get it. Got a swing right over here too, to the left. You might want to put that stop right at that swing right there. Always look to the left to trade right, and that got me. That's okay. That's no big deal. Now let's draw it again. That took us for a little bit. Let's see if we can get another one. Got a trend line again. I do like trend lines better when you do get at least a little candle where you can draw not so straight up, because those can kind of get you every once in a while. There you are again. Put our stop just above the swing, and that's also to the left is a little swing. So we'll see if that trade works out. And that's a little lightning swing right there, so if it broke that line, I would probably add one. And then I get one out of the way, one at the bottom, and I'd be in 3. And probably put a line right here just in case they were to come up above here with like sniper. You could always take one off just in case because you're short 3. Okay, everybody see how to do that too? Now, this particular trade, by the way, on gold, this is doing it with a trend line, by the way. Okay, but keep in mind that you could have just simply boxed this trade too. And let me show you the beauty of boxing versus a trend line. Like I said, we don't really care about the trade. Just trying to show you how to get into them and also how to see trend changes. But the trade is going our direction, so we'll stick with it. Now, usually when I see this happen, I usually get my trades out of the way. I like profit. Okay, but I would probably put a sniper line right above any kind of swing, like so, and take out if they happen to take that out. Okay, now that turned out to be a pretty nice trade, didn't it? Okay, now that particular trade right here, by the way, is a classic trade that we teach called a mid-band trade. And there's probably hundreds of our people that would actually have boxed that in and taken that trade. Now notice that when I first did this, if you draw tight without any kind of retrace at all, and when I'm talking about retrace, I'm talking about minor retrace. That's like a bar down, okay, and then a bar up, then see, you could draw your trend line better, and that's usually a better trend line. They won't fake you in as much. I've talked about that in several webinars. If you get in on one like this, you know, that's real tight like this, and it just barely kisses resistance over here, and they're trying to go a little higher, then you're gonna more than likely lose on a trade, and you just get stopped out. Okay, but if you wait for the little, you know, where they tried to roll over to fake somebody and then went on up, and then you draw your trend line, you'll be surprised how often that works, because then you got a true trend line. Everybody see what I'm talking about there, right? See your candles up, candles up, candles up, candles up, candle down, candle up, draw your trend line. Okay, if you box it, where would you box this? You got a candle up, you got a candle down. Normally the way we box this is like this. You simply engulf this candle so that a 1, 2, 3 reversal would take it out, and you're short on that bar. Everybody see that? And you put your stop above the swing. Now that's a little bit better trade than, you know, getting wicked into a trade like I did just a minute ago. See, like that, because it went higher. And you can be on the wrong side of a trade pretty quick. But if you do wait for the lightning, and that's one of the things I love about lightning. See that? High, low, higher, high. That made your trend line draw like that. And that's a lot better trend line than that other one. You know, I was mentioning that in several webinars ago. If you get your trend line so tight that's just along the bars, they're going to fake you. So the loss is 5 ticks? No, Bhaskar. The loss is actually when I get into a trade, you know, for instance, if you were to take this trade right here, yeah, the loss would have probably been pretty low. But you also have to look to the left to trade the right. And, you know, I see a swing right across here, to give an example. And if you got in this trade, you could put your stop right here at first. And then as it blew through this, you bring the stop down to here. As it blew through and then started stair stepping, you could keep bringing your stop down. Okay. Watch and you'll see where to get out with lightning. Remember in the room this morning where I talked about getting out on oil on the trend line break twice? And then the very last one that I did was actually, well, it was a good spot to get out. You know, when you get a thrust, retrace thrust in the morning, you know, you're looking for, you know, a couple of good thrusts. You don't really want much more than that. You know, a couple of good thrusts, and you can usually count on them consolidating. Let's see if I'm missing any questions. Let's see here. Let's see. So you ever use the wedge with the 242 chart? Well, you can, John. Absolutely, you can. The reason we've stuck with 4-range bars is simply because we don't want to be thought of out there as changing. You know, when we first went into business back in 10 years ago, we were looking at 4-range charts. We were looking at 5s. We were looking at 6s. And if you do that, then, you know, it's pretty easy where somebody goes, well, yeah, look, a 6-range chart did great today, but a 4-range didn't. Well, what we do is we watch the lightning swings. Yeah, you should be able to hear me, Keith, I hope. Y'all can see, y'all can hear me still, right? Hope I didn't lose anybody. Everybody hearing my voice? Okay, let me send a quick message to Keith to log out and back in. Just 1 second. All right, just so he doesn't think we're ignoring him. All right. Okay, does everybody see what I'm talking about there? Those are definitely extremely important, you know, to always look on your chart. For instance, like right this very moment, where do you think that this trend would change? You have a high, you have a low, you have a lower high, see? You have a lower low. So isn't this now your lightning 3? Is that your lightning 3 right there? It is, isn't it? Let's just check and see if I'm right, because we're almost out of time. But I want to see if I'm right on this, because we were still trading our gold, but we don't care. We're going to just watch and see if anybody can spot a trend change. I'm going to go to 500 times. Remember this morning on this trade at all? I drew a line right across here. We looked for a little short trade right at that line. See how it just rolled over from it? Said it missed it by a tick. Of course, I got this going 500 times, so I'm not going to trade it. See, it's 500 times. Okay. Now you have a low here, a high here, and a lower low here. Is this actually looking at a very possible trend change? What does anybody think? Well, not yet, because you barely took out those lows. Could you short this again? Does anybody remember that we actually called this trade in the room? We said box this in. And the way you would do that would be with a region, hit insert. You got support right at mid-band. I like touch +2 usually. And let's see if we can get another trade. Fast forward a little bit, see. I'd tighten it up a little bit because that's your swing. Tighten it up a little bit more because that's my swing. Not in just yet. There I am. Put my stop just above the swing just in case, so I'm risking 11 ticks. Everybody see that? We called that trade in the room this morning, by the way, and this is what we call a phantom trade, but it just didn't quite get it. It missed it by a tick. But we did say box the trade in. Okay? Now, what would it take if you start seeing this happening on this trade? If it took this out, would it be a trend change? Because you got to think, you know, all the time. You got to really give it some thought of what's going on in your charts. Okay, and especially if it gets a lightning 3. Now we don't have a lightning 3 yet, but I'll just about bet you get one here if this does enough zigzag down to give us a lightning 3. We'll see if it does. Yep, there it is. See it? All right. So if it does break this, remember we've still got to always look at our charts. Where would this change trends? Here. Okay. You're still stair-stepping down so far. Now you're stair-stepping up. Okay. You've got resistance right across here. You're breaking it. Now let me ask you a quick question. Could you box this in right here? We teach this particular trade all the time. Now notice over here, if you boxed it in, you went short. Okay. What's it doing now though? It took out a swing to the left. We teach this trade right here. And this is a good trade that we teach, that if you box in like so, you'll usually get you a pretty decent little trade if it pops out of that little box. And I usually like to put it more like second bar back, bar down, bar up, has to take out that third bar. And we'll see if it did. See why I'm reboxing like that? Now, there we go. All right, and you got your little trade. Now, why would we have boxed this right here, and why could this even be a trend change? Anybody? Well, look to the left to trade the right. You have a low, you have a high, you have a lower low. Okay, that's the left side of the chart. So they clearly took that out over here. All right. Now, when they took that out and they come back and kiss, can you box at mid-band? Yes. Okay. Now, did it do the same thing on this side of the chart? It did break above here. Yeah, I would have boxed this in, actually. I think I would have boxed this in above mid-band, get a little quick trade, even against the trend. But keep in mind that the Phantom, and you're looking at the first time into Phantom after a trend change is your first one. And notice how you double bottomed. We called this out in the room live too. We said gold was double bottoming. Remember, I had a line drawn here, and I said if it takes it out, stay with the trade. If not, draw a trend line. You know, because if you draw trend lines on your charts, you can get out of trades at a pretty good spot. Okay. Now, what if you miss this trade entirely? All right. Now, we know that on Lightning 3, we don't really change trends until they take this out. Okay. But that would be considered a breakout trade. I'd be real careful with that. So if you weren't in this trade and you decided you wanted to take it if it was to break above here, then you would have to put a tight stop. Okay. Because that would be considered a breakout trade. And I'd probably even do this, just in case it decided to break. Because if it did, you'd have a high here, a low here, and a little higher high, so it would be taking out support, right? See how they barely take that out? That's called a breakout trade. Now, where I like it is right there. See where it just kissed that? Well, we missed it because I got it going 50 times. But see how it thrust up above and kissed right there on that swing? That's where you buy it. And by the way, this little trade right here is also called a what? Anybody? This little trade is called a minimum criteria trade. Yeah. Now, it was still, that would have been a little iffy for me, but I would have probably boxed it in if I didn't get it down here. Simply because even though this is technically minimum criteria here, it hadn't changed the mid-band yet. Okay. And it did break it, didn't it? It didn't break stealth, though. You're right. It did not break stealth. That's just a box-in trade on a breakout. Yeah, you're right on that. Now, what if you missed entirely what had gone on? Anybody see a trade set up? It just had it. You just missed it. It was a minimum criteria for sure on that one. Everybody see it? It was right here. It closed below stealth. It went back above line 6. So could you take that trade boxing it in? Yes. So if you missed that trade, then you're looking for very possibly a predictor type trade. See, I've got a line drawn on the chart. And we'll see if we can get a predictor type trade. Now this is getting pretty late in the morning, but let's just see if we can get a predictor trade. Got a high here, kind of zigzag down. Got a low here, high here, so it took out that high. So this is an identified swing. All right, our predictor's saying that our trade's right here. Haven't gotten it yet, though. Another minimum criteria, by the way. Anybody see that one? That new indicator will let you know when that happens. Now, if you're looking strictly for predictor trades, though, let's watch and see if we can get a little retracement like a mid-band type trade. Everybody see that you have two trades here? Though you have this one here. You have this one here. It did definitely close below stealth and line 6. So that's a minimum criteria trade right there. Okay. And keep in mind when you take a minimum criteria trade, always look to the left. You know, if you took out this swing, see like it did, power to it. If it then kissed the top and rolled over a little bit, get your trade off the table. There was your predictor trade. I'm going to go ahead and take it just for the fun of it. It should get a higher low than that. And I'd put a pretty tight stop on it. Did programmer send you the new indicator? Not this very moment, but he did say he was cleaning it up, and I'm supposed to get it still tonight. But his night starts pretty much around now. When I talk to him at night, he's usually working till 11, 12 o'clock at night Eastern time. And then I usually see him online again at about 5 o'clock in the morning too. So he's actually doesn't sleep that much, I guess. Of course, he's got a full-time job and 2 kids. Yeah, not much sleep at all. Now, where would you put your stop on this? Anybody? Just in case. And if you do get stopped out, could you get back in? By the way, if you take a trade like this and they do this little bit like they're not trying to take this up, I usually tighten my stop just under the swing, simply because if they're going to go up, they need to go up. Otherwise, they're faking you out. See, they haven't done an A, B, C yet. And a lot of times they'll take out support. It looks like they're going to me. They're going to get me. They got me. Could we be ready for it again, though? Well, we're bouncing off the predictor again, so let's put it on the third candle back, and I'll simply move the box if we go down further. See if we can get it. Third candle back is right there, right there. Predictor says down here. We'll see. Box it in. Now that's your candle. Candle down, candle down. Now you need a candle up. Candle down. Candle up. Third candle. If it pops it, we're in. Everybody see how I'm doing that in real time? Now, will this trade continue going down? It might, and we're going to keep a real tight stop on it, like right across here if they decide to pop this up and then pull back in our face. Down candle, up candle, third candle. One more tick. That's 2. Need a third one. I'm going to do 1. It's trying to break. There it goes. All right, put our stop nice and tight on that one. We're going to risk 8 ticks. See why I'm risking 8 ticks, everyone? Because if this is going to continue up, I don't want it to take out where it bipped up on that third candle. Okay, because remember, just like Charles taught in that one webinar, you look for a candle down, on a long this is, you look for a candle down, a candle up, you draw your little box, especially if it's around this mid band. Okay, everybody see that? And as it goes, if it decides to keep going, you get one target out of the way, one up at a swing, or even this swing if you want to, and it's good to go. Now, where would a trend change be if this thing decides to do it later on? Anybody? Well, it broke lightning 3, but then it popped up, okay? But does everybody see that more than likely this lightning 3, if it gets broken later on, or for sure if this one turns into a lightning 3, you would probably be changing trends. And that's what I look for. I look at every single chart with 2 trades in mind. I want my little mid-band trades. I want my trend line trades. Well, that's a good trade. Go ahead and tighten it up at mid-band. We're only risking 3 ticks. And I'd probably take 1 off if a bar closed down. But by the way, we got a tool for that. Just turn on bar close down, and it'll take 1 off. Because if a bar closes up, 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 you won't take any off. Yep, trend lines, everything like that is just really good. Let's see, with PM3 to the left, isn't this a possible trend change? You're talking about right here, right? Brian, on your question? Yes and no. And let me tell you why I look at that one real skeptical. Why do we look at this one real skeptical? This didn't form until this side of the, you won't see this until this side of it's been pinging around a little bit, okay? So when this formed and that top was barely taken out, I do not consider that an identified lightning 3 swing. Now, if they took this out by a bunch, like up in here, then I would consider that a lightning 3 swing. Because usually what they'll do, if they barely take out a top, if you've ever noticed this when you're trading, they'll barely take out a top and then they'll barely take out a bottom. And see, that's exactly what they did. Let me draw the 2 lines, and we're almost out of time. See there where they basically broke it. Matter of fact, you can usually draw a box and they break it about the same. Just copy this box and I'll bet it fits the other one pretty close. We'll copy it and see. Am I copying the right one? Copy that. Copy, paste. Yep, same box. See how they do that? So when you barely take out a high like this, don't consider this lightning. For instance, don't go shorting this if they barely take these tops out. Because when they're trending, they're going to thrust, they're going to retrace, they're going to break the highs by quite a bit. Even this one here, for instance, if you would have been long but for any reason, even down in here, I would not consider this to be my swing if I barely got this. You see what I mean? So let's say you had boxed this in. Is this your legitimate swing, or is it right down here actually? And it's actually right here. But you don't have to put your stop there. You can go back in a trade, obviously. You always got to, trade smart. If you see a swing that's way down below where your stop, you're trying to keep your stop, then keep your stop and then get back in. Okay. Let's look well, we're 12 minutes after. We won't look at anything else. I hope this actually helped everybody because, recognizing trend changes early gets you in on part of the thrust of a leg 1. Okay? Because if you look at gold right now, this is the close of the market and everything. This is actually leg 1, leg 2, leg 3. Now, are they going to head up and really take this out tomorrow or overnight? Very possibly. Because so far, you changed trends. We talked about it when it happened. They thrust up like that. They pull back like that. And I'll just about guarantee you a predictor will draw there sometime tomorrow. I'll leave this line on the chart if you want. 1279.30. Everybody getting a little bit closer to figuring out trend changes? You don't have to have a trend change background and everything to see it. Now, sometimes it will, but, for instance, even right here, if you saw this happening and they had taken out the swings to the left, they're starting to try to change trends. If you start getting these higher lows, you're pretty much going to change trends. Then they took it out, so you didn't get higher lows, but they barely took out the low, okay? So what you're looking for is a thrust up and a pullback in the mid-band. And the same thing could have been done here as far as that goes, okay? But when they change trends, they're going to take out this lightning 3. See, it's right here. Now, keep in mind, this is another one of those that if I was to take this, I wouldn't let it go back against me, okay? See how that just came up to resistance, tried to roll, and then they popped up through it. But notice that they never came back to it until later, and that's when they checked it. See there at that line? Okay? I hope that helped because, in the room this morning, I know everybody saw there was only one trade that did not work, and it was a real quick, in the box, and you're out of the trade. And that's the way we teach and trade. All right. And if I missed any questions, be sure and ask in the morning. Now, one thing also, I'm going to try my dead level best, obviously. With 2 moderators, we can watch 4 charts really easily because Charles and I even Skype each other. Like I'm watching Russell right now, and I'll holler out those areas, and then I'll tell him, well, I'm watching oil, and I'll holler out its areas. And so he won't be with us for the next few days. By the way, also, for some reason, something's happened to our high energy times that they're not getting calculated and everything. So I'm going to probably send out the email tonight again with no high energy times. For some reason, this particular holiday has thrown off the calculations completely. Okay, so there's really been no high energy times except for the opens and stuff like we always teach. All right, again, thanks everybody for coming. I try not to run these an hour and 15 minutes, but we did. All right, watch for those trend changes tomorrow. You'll be amazed when you start seeing them. Okay, thanks everyone.